Hey, it's Jonathan McGinley, a Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer, and the founder of Intentional Man, a company that exists to give Christian men the tools, community, and coaching to pursue God-sized goals, live intentionally, and build lives of significance. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had a time where you planned out your day in advance, like you thought through everything you wanted to accomplish, you blocked off time to work, and then distraction after distraction popped up, and you get to the end of the day and you realize you didn't do anything that you actually set out to do? Have you ever experienced one of those days? Or maybe it was a time where you sat down to knock out a specific task for an hour or something and found yourself scrolling social media 10 minutes later, or maybe you were checking emails. We live in a world that is becoming more and more distracted, right? It is so easy to have your day completely sabotaged by interruptions, different distractions, your phone, notifications, and maybe even other people. And I believe that one of the greatest obstacles and challenges to being the man you were made to be and accomplishing the mission that God has given you are daily distractions, right? So let me ask you this. With those distractions, do you have a plan for dealing with them? Do you have a plan for dealing with distractions? Have you taken the time to proactively design your life in a way that limits the number of distractions you have each day? And if you're like most people, the answer is probably no, right? That's not usually something we think about. We talk about designing our schedules all the time, but we don't often talk about designing our distraction plan. And there's so many things fighting for our time, our resources, our attention. And if we don't have a plan for how we want to deal with distractions, we can easily fall into them, end up wasting our time, wasting our potential. And I know that you don't want to do that because you're here and you're listening to this episode right now. So today I want to talk about overcoming distractions, talking about the cost of distractions and then how to actually attack them. And ask almost anyone how life has been lately. And what's the answer that you usually get? It's almost always busy, right? Ask almost anyone a reason they've been putting something off that they know they should be doing. And the answer will probably be, I don't have time. Busyness and the lack of time to do the things that we say are priorities in our lives are issues that I continue to see plague a lot of the men that I work with. And we have so many responsibilities, I know, and seemingly never-ending to-do lists that we don't have time for distractions. And if we actually got a good grip on them and developed laser-like focus in our lives, I believe that it would actually open the door to spending time on the things that matter most to us and actually getting some time to rest and recharge. We live in an increasingly distracted world. Every day we're bombarded with thousands of messages, alerts, emails, texts, social media messages. There's so many different ways that we can be distracted. I actually did a little research on this because I wanted to see where the average American is spending their time. And so doing a little research, latest statistics show that the average American is spending 7 hours on their phone each day. 7 hours. And that is screen time for the average American. Also, the average American is watching 3 hours of television every single day. 3 hours of TV. So you got 7 hours on your phone, 3 hours of TV, and then the average office worker is getting about 100 emails per day, right? Feels like we just get a million messages every single day. It's about 100. And if, say you take it, it takes about 2 minutes per email, that's probably being generous, but that would be another 200 minutes of your time, which is just a hair under 3.5 hours. And that's probably being a little conservative because that's not actually even accounting for the time that it takes to switch from one task to your email and then switch back. But that's strictly email. You got another 3.5 hours. So if you add up 7 hours on your phone, the 3 hours on TV, the 3.5 hours on your email, out of our 24-hour day, we're spending 13.5 hours on just those things. So if you take out another 7 for sleeping, all you got is about another 3.5 hours of your day. So no wonder we feel busy all the time, right? No wonder we feel like we don't have time. But I want to say this. Here's a better way to look at this. If you can actually be proactive and develop a plan for overcoming your distractions, and if you can develop the skill of focus and efficiency, then you'll pretty much have a superpower, right? You'll pretty much have a superpower. If everyone else is spending 13.5 hours of their day on these things, and you can eliminate those distractions and be laser focused, you're going to have a leg up on everybody else. So when we talk about skills to develop for the future, I think this is one of the absolute most crucial skills that you can develop to separate yourself from everyone else. So I want to quickly just help you today identify the causes of distraction and give you a quick game plan to overcoming them. So let's jump in. This is going to be fun. I'm excited for this. So, all right. First of all, when we think of distractions, we usually are thinking of some sort of device or notification, right? When you say distraction, probably your phone comes to mind or TV or something, and some sort of external trigger that causes a distraction. But usually there's actually a deeper cause. There's usually some sort of internal trigger. And what I mean by internal trigger is that there's usually something going on deep inside of us that is causing us to turn to distractions for relief. And one of the biggest motivators for humans is pain avoidance. We are driven to avoid pain almost unlike any other driver. We are driven to avoid discomfort. And it's this drive to release discomfort that is the root cause of a lot of our behavior. So, for example, let's think of this. When you're working, you come on something that's pretty difficult, some sort of challenge. Maybe you don't know the answer to the problem, or it's something that's going to take a lot of mental energy and time to solve. So you come up on this obstacle. What do? You grab your phone, you pick it up, and you hop on social media and you start scrolling, right? I'm sure you've been there. I've been there a bunch of different times. Or it could be something even deeper where you're feeling unhappy in your current situation, or you're experiencing a lot of stress in life. And so in that moment, you turn to binge watching TV to get your mind off of it. Right? Like I feel like we could relate to these. We're faced with something difficult, so we run to a distraction. Oftentimes, it isn't just our smartphone's fault that we're distracted. A lot of times, it's actually something that's going on within us that drives us to use distractions as a way to avoid pain and discomfort. So oftentimes, distraction is really just a mechanism to escape reality. And the more that we go to something that gives us relief from pain, the more our brain is then trained to go to that thing. And then it can become highly addictive. It can become a habit. Every time you face that challenge at work and you decide to check your phone instead of pushing through, you're training your brain that you want relief when you face something difficult and that your phone is the answer to that. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation that you know you need to have and you go watch a sports game instead, you're training your brain to crave that reward of watching TV every time you're faced with a difficult circumstance. So you can see how important this is. More important than even dealing with external triggers, which we're going to talk about. But we must know and understand what our internal triggers and pains are that we're using to avoid with distractions. So how we learn to deal with these internal triggers in our lives is ultimately going to dictate if we spend our time on distractions to escape reality that are unhealthy, or if we spend time on things that are beneficial. Okay, so how do we do this? How do you do this if you have these internal triggers? So this is something you can really think through and decide how you want to attack it. But I want to give you a couple things just to help you get started. So the first is you have to start identifying the discomfort that happens before the trigger. So in our example, you have to identify that the reason you're going to your phone to distract you is that you're feeling stress at work, right? The reason that you're going to TV to avoid a conversation is because you don't want the discomfort of the conversation. Until we can actually identify those things, the internal triggers, it's going to be really hard to actually just stop the distracting activity. So if you're at work and you pick up your phone and you start scrolling, just rewind the clock a little bit and ask yourself, what was the discomfort that I was feeling that caused me to pick up my phone? And then just write down the answer to that question. Go through each of the situations of your day where you got distracted and just say, let's rewind the clock a little bit. What was the discomfort I was feeling? And identify them. We can't fix anything if we don't identify it. So step one, you have to start paying attention to that pain that you're avoiding when you start to do a distracting activity. So the next technique, I got this from a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and I'll reference that as we go. But this is something called the 10-minute rule. And this is a great rule here. So this is something you can also do to kind of help take care of some of these internal distractions. So when you feel the urge to do something distracting, like turn on the TV, like look at social media or scroll the internet, you actually give yourself permission to do it. But here's the catch. You have to wait 10 minutes until you actually do it. So you're at work, you come across that problem, you want to open your phone, you just don't do it immediately. You give yourself 10 minutes to stay focused on what you're doing. Then you actually just give yourself permission to do that activity in 10 minutes. And oftentimes you'll find two things from this. Most likely in 10 minutes, if you actually wait, you're no longer going to have the urge to do that activity, which is nice. It's likely going to just go away. And two, you're going to start to train yourself not to immediately gratify the urge for relief in the middle of something that's uncomfortable. So you can actually start training your brain to push through and develop some resiliency. If you're going to start to work on overcoming distractions, my greatest encouragement would be to start working on these internal triggers first, because without addressing these, it's going to be hard to stay consistent with the others. So that's the first one, internal triggers. All right, the next cause of distraction. This is the one we're probably most familiar with, the one you probably think of when you hear the word distraction, and that's external triggers. So these, I'm talking about notifications, talking about alerts, phone calls, text messages, other coworkers coming up and interrupting you. These are external forces that come into our life and distract us from what we're doing. So whereas the internal triggers are the things that you do, like you pick up your phone, you pick up the TV remote, you go to email, external triggers are the things that happen to you. So these are the things that are coming at you from the outside. I think we can all think of a time where we had great intentions of getting something done, then only to get a notification on our phone, take a look at it, and next thing you know, 30 minutes have gone by, an hour's gone by, and you haven't done the thing that you planned on doing. This can happen to me a lot if I'm not careful. A lot of distraction today comes in this form. And the more and more that we react to these triggers, the more we train our brains to continue to react to them. The more notifications that you immediately respond to, the harder it is going to be to ignore the next time it comes in. So you might be thinking that just ignoring the notifications, the texts, the alerts, or phone calls is a good strategy, but there's actually a recent study. This is so interesting. It showed that just hearing a notification go off and then not doing anything about it actually takes just as much brain power and energy away from your current activity as if you picked up your phone in the first place. Right? Like, have you ever you heard your phone go off at your desk, text message came in, you heard it, but you tried to ignore it, and you just keep working? Like, I've tried this before. My phone's on my desk and it goes off. But even while I'm working, I'm still thinking about, like, what is the message? What if it's urgent? What if I'm missing something? So I'm still struggling to restrain myself from taking a look. And that itself can be just as distracting as if I actually would have picked up my phone and took a look at it. So I think we all have a pretty good understanding of these external triggers. You know what I'm talking about. So let me give you some exercises or some things to think about to help you get a better grip on these. So let's talk about our smartphone first, because this is what we always think about with external triggers. You got to get proactive with your smartphone and set it up in a way that limits distractions. So these phones that we have, they were designed by a team of people that literally know human psychology, and they designed it in a way that's supposed to keep you on them as long as possible. So if you don't actually take action to fight against it, it's going to be really difficult to not be distracted by it. So again, I referenced this book earlier, but this is from Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and I thought this was really good. He gave a 4-step process for handling your smartphone. So step 1 is remove. What I mean by this, actually taking time to delete the apps on your phone that you're not using and that don't serve you. That's a key part too, that don't serve you. You can ask yourself the question, is this app serving me and my values, or am I serving this app? Right? It's a great question. Go through your phone and ask that for each of your apps. If it's not serving you, then remove it. So that's step 1. Remove the apps that are not serving you or the ones that you're just not even using at all. Step 2 is to replace. So you find the best time and place to do the things that you want to do. So it's okay to look at social media. It's okay to check email. I'm not saying those things are wrong, but you have, are you habitually checking these things constantly? Or here's the key. Do you have a planned time and place to look at it? If each time you check the time on your phone, you see a message and you get sucked in, then maybe a good idea would be to start wearing a watch. and you can check the time on there so you don't get sucked into your phone. Seek to come up with strategies that replace what you've been doing and actually have planned times. Plan out times in your day. This is when I'm going to check social media. I got 15 minutes to do it. This is when I'm going to check email. I got 30 minutes to do it. Whatever it is, actually plan some time to do that instead of just doing it intermittently throughout the day. Okay, step 3 is to rearrange. So actually arrange your phone in a way that serves you. So, and the author of this book, he suggests to come up with 3 buckets. I thought these were really good. 3 buckets. So you got primary tools, aspirations, and slot machines. So primary tools, aspirations, slot machines. Label each of your apps in one of those 3 categories. Primary tools and aspirations, these are good things. They go on the front page. Slot machines, they go on the next page. So slot machines, we're talking about, social media, email, the things that can easily eat away at your time. You can get sucked into them just like slot machines where you just go over and over and over. Put those on the second page. Put them in the third page. Put them in a folder. Log out of them each time that you use them. Do something that sets a little barrier there so that you can't easily just go to it every single time. And then the apps that actually serve you, like it's your Bible app or your Kindle app or something that's actually productive, put that on the home page, the first page, so that when you open your phone, those are the things that you see. All right, so there's 3 steps. The last step is to reclaim. You got to go proactively set notifications for each app. More than 85% of people leave their notification settings untouched. So if you're doing that, that means you're at the mercy of the people who design the apps to keep you on them as much as possible. Literally, when they were coming up with their app and their notification settings, they're thinking and strategizing, how can I keep somebody on this thing or get somebody back onto it? So if you don't touch your notifications, you're literally at the mercy of those settings where that was their intention. So this is a big one. Actually have a strategy for notifications. Go into your settings, take a look at them, and then as you go through each notification, ask yourself the question, is this notification serving me or am I serving it? You can ask yourself that again. If the notification's not serving you, it's time to shut it off. So that's a step that you can take to actually be proactive and to reclaim some of the power that you have over your phone and be proactive. All right. So one of my other tips for being focused, removing some of these external distractions, is to do some sprints at work, focus sprints at work. And what I mean by this is you actually put your phone in a different room or put it in a drawer, make sure it's silent, and you set a timer for 25 minutes and you work on one task for 25 minutes, completely focused. And you don't let any distractions come in. You say, I got 25 minutes to work on this. After 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. And then after the 5-minute break, you repeat. You do another 25 minutes. My suggestion would be after the first 25 in that break, you still don't look at your phone. You just stand up, walk around your house a little bit, walk around the office, go get a drink of water, something to kind of refocus, and then come back, do 25 more minutes. Then at that point, you could maybe check your phone and check it after the second cycle there. So then if you feel like 25 minutes isn't very much, you can increase that. You can go up to 35, 45, 55. But the point is start small. If you're used to checking your phone pretty often or used to checking email pretty often, start small and build the muscle of actually locking in for 25 minutes at a time. Okay, and then the last big thing, this is huge here, to avoid distractions is you got to plan your day. We waste so much time in between tasks and activities. So if you think back through your day, a lot of the times you're probably hopping on email or you're hopping on your phone is in between tasks. You finish one and you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do next. So you just pull out your phone, you start checking it, all of a sudden 30 minutes goes by and you're like, shoot, I got to get back to work. And that's when you figure out what the next task is. So my advice to you would be to plan your day out where you have every hour blocked off before you even get to your day. I do this the night before in my Intentional Man planner, but use something to where you're going into the day, you know you have the plan. You know each task that you're doing, the time that you're doing it, you have it blocked off. So when you finish one, you know exactly what you're going into next. And I heard a cool quote by a old Roman philosopher. His name's Seneca. And I thought this was really interesting. He said, people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they're most wasteful of the one thing, which is right to be stingy. Right? Isn't that good? You probably have some sort of personal possession, something that you protect with everything that you got. But then when it comes to our time, which is ultimately our most valuable resource, we're not that good at protecting it. So start to treat your time as your most valuable resource. Take the time to plan it well. If you do that, you're not going to leave much margin for distractions. So those are some of my main tips, tools, and resources for you. Make sure you're dealing with those internal distractions first, those internal triggers, setting things up for that, being proactive with those. Once you have those dealt with, then move to the external triggers and start to put some plans in place for those. So I hope you look at today with some great optimism and excitement. Don't look at this as something you have to give up, but something that you can gain. Like literally look at it as a chance to win back precious time that you can then use to spend more time with the people that are most important to you. You have a chance to do the things that you enjoy. You have a chance to get more rest. You have a chance to spend more time with the Lord because you have limited distractions and been proactive with it. So this is something truly that we have to be intentional about. We must make it a plan for growth in this area. We're not going to automatically improve unless we attack this. So, and honestly, it'll probably get worse if you don't actually have a plan for limiting distractions in your life. You're probably going to become more and more hooked to the ones that you're currently doing. So take time today to actually put a plan in place. Don't listen to this podcast and then go back to how things were in the past. Make sure you're being proactive. Take action. You got this. You got this. Put in some sort of plan to fight against the distractions in your life. So remember, you're doing this so you can make the time for the things that are most important to you and your priorities. It's worth the work. It's going to save you countless hours in the future. So thanks for joining today. Go live a life you're proud of by living intentionally.